Hi everybody, Andrew Cuneo here. Today I wanted to make a video that's my reaction to the Arena Economy stream that happened on the main Magic channel yesterday. It was a stream that featured Blake, who is the normal host of the weekly MTG stream, interviewing Chris Kiritz, I believe it's how you pronounce his name, who is the executive producer of Arena, I think is his official title or something close to it. And they were kind of just trying to talk about issues with the Arena economy, what they described as pain points in the Arena economy for players, and just it was the first time in a long time we've been able to actually get someone at Wizards' thoughts about how Arena functions, basically. So in terms of making this video, I was a little bit at a loss for how to structure my thoughts on what my reaction to the stream was. And then I came across this tweet from Ben Sek where he said, "It's extremely delusional that this entire talk about the MTG Arena economy doesn't address the biggest problem. It is too expensive, and it is more expensive than most competitors. If anything, the wildcard bundle reinforces this, and I think there is no relief on the horizon." So we're going to eventually we'll get to what he means about the wildcard bundle. That will become explained in time. For a little bit of background, Ben Sek, who also goes by TBS in the Magic community, is a longtime Magic pro. He was a mainstay on the paper Pro Tour circuit. And he also has a very extensive background as a executive who's worked at video game companies. So this is a space he actually knows a lot about. And I think that what he said is basically true. I think that at its core, the problem with Arena is that it's too expensive. It's not these kind of minor details, which we're going to get into about the economy. One kind of nuance that I would have with this point, or one way I would go a little bit beyond it, is I think that the fact that this stream happened at all is a tacit admission on the part of Wizards of the Coast that there probably is a problem with the economy and that it may be too expensive. I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess that they're looking at either their ability to grow new users or their ability to get existing users to spend money, and they're saying that Arena is not as healthy as we want it to be. And so they're looking at ways where they can maybe tweak the economy to make it more appealing to consumers. I do agree with Ben's broader point, though, that the problem is really it's just too expensive. And so with that, I think we're going to dive into the stream, or dive into what was said on the stream. I guess before we do that, there's one other tweet I wanted to show you, which is a tweet. This was from Brian Kibler, who is very well-known, digital TCG personality. Brian is also in the Magic Hall of Fame and was a very successful paper player before he transferred, or, before he went to go and play Hearthstone and design other games. And so he says, on a more serious note, it's baffling to me that WotC would make a big deal out of a stream discussing the MTG Arena economy issues for months, and then the big reveal is that they're letting people buy a dozen cards for $50, or it would be baffling if it weren't par for the course. So it's not actually a dozen cards for $50, it's 16 cards for $50, I believe, which is also kind of crazy. And to that, Blake, who's the host of Weekly MTG, responds, "I don't believe we made a big deal out of the stream. I mentioned we should do one, and then people kept asking me about it, and I kept answering those economy stream when questions till we found a spot to start that discussion." So I think this is where, I think Blake is being honest, but I think he's really grossly misjudged what the community's reaction to the stream would be. This was something that was a pretty big deal, I think, for a lot of the people who are playing Arena. Certainly, if you look at the reaction on social media, and on Reddit, it's received way more comment than any other weekly MTG stream I've ever seen. And if you go and you look at the number of views from the Twitch VOD, at the time I'm recording this, I think that the Twitch VOD for this stream has received 20 times more views than any of the other recent daily MTG streams. So it may not have been their intent for this stream to be a big deal, but it's being taken by the community as a big deal. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of the excerpts from the stream that I particularly wanted to talk about. I hope I've done a good job of putting enough context around them so that you can understand the point that the WotC employees were trying to make. I'm going to leave a link to the entire VOD. I would encourage you to go watch it if this is something you're particularly interested in, because they do go over more than what I'm going to talk about here. The entire stream was roughly an hour, and I think I've edited out maybe 12 to 15 minutes of it that I wanted to talk about. So there is a lot more covered than what I'm going to go over here, so go watch the VOD if it's something that you are particularly interested in. With that, let's jump into the first clip.
So when we talk about the economy, I want to go back one step further and talk a little bit about what Arena is designed to do, right? And our vision for Arena is fun, fast magic for everyone, anywhere.
So that statement, fun, fast magic for anyone, everywhere, it doesn't really directly relate to the economy, but I wanted to just stop and talk about that for a second, because it's something that's been presented as Arena's philosophy by their production team a lot when they talk about Arena. And I want to take issue with the fact that Arena is fast. Arena is not actually fast. Arena is slower in a lot of cases than Magic Online is. Arena, honestly, is even slower than Paper is some of the time. And I really wish that Arena was actually fast. But if you look at things like a cat oven mirror in Historic, it is painfully slow to play. And I really wish that the Arena team would be taking more steps to kind of correct this. And I would say kind of the 20,000 foot view of how I think they should approach it would be to take the chess clocks in best of 3 that are currently set to 30 minutes per person, chop them down to 20 minutes, see what problems that exposes, and fix those problems. For people who don't know right now, if you play best of 3 on the ladder, if you played in a tournament, you're going to have 30 minutes on your chess clock. So there's a total of 1 hour on the chess clock from both players. If you play competitive Magic in other contexts, you never have that much time. If you play it on Magic Online, the chess clocks are generally 25 minutes. If you play in Paper, even at a big event, the round times are only 50 minutes. Now, the round times in Paper, there isn't like an overage time, so usually the round times do go over 50 minutes in a big tournament. There will be 1 or 2 matches that last a long time. But Arena should be substantially faster than Paper. Arena should be at least as fast as Magic Online, and it just isn't. So that has nothing to do with the economy, but it's just an aside, and it's a point I wanted to bring up because I think it would make Arena more fun if it was actually fast. Let's move on to the next clip.
That's where the wildcard system comes from, right? And the wildcard system is built to effectively be that dusting system, but rather than tying it to destroying cards and destroying your collection, we tie it to something that's inherently part of Magic and inherently supposed to be fun, which is opening boosters.
So that was an explanation for why there isn't dusting in the design of the Arena economy. And I think it's a pretty reasonable explanation, honestly. The idea that rather than you getting, additional value from opening cards by destroying the cards you opened and then converting them to what you wanted, we're going to front load the value. We're going to let you keep your cards, and we're going to also give you some ability to go out and get the cards you actually wanted in the wildcard system. I think that's a good philosophy, but the thing that's obviously missing from that statement is the rate at which you generate the wild cards is a variable in the system. And I think a lot of people's complaints is that the rate is just not fast enough, which is why you consistently hear people asking for stuff like dusting, or, asking for just generally ways for Arena to be cheaper. The real complaint people have when they're asking for dusting is they want it to be cheaper to acquire the deck that they want. And that's just like the fundamental problem that is kind of being glossed over. I think the design philosophy behind no dusting, it's fine. I would be happy if dusting existed. I don't mind that it doesn't exist. It doesn't affect the enjoyment of Magic really one way or another. The important part is that people want to be able to get the deck they want to play with at what they think is a fair price. And I think for a lot of people, the Arena economy does not do that now, regardless of whether or not there's dusting.
If you're trying to build your collection, limited is a really good way to do that, because as part of the game experience, you're opening a bunch of cards and building your collection. You're also playing and earning prizes. If you don't like limited, you don't have that option to you. Right. And so that there's a pain point there, which is, how do I build a collection as a constructed player when this kind of viable path isn't the one for me, because it's not something that I enjoy.
So what was Chris just said is 100% true, that the best way to build a collection on Arena is through limited. If you watch my channel, you'll notice that I play a huge variety of decks, and I personally, I've never spent any money on Arena at all. I've also won money in a bunch of Arena Opens, so I've come out way ahead on Arena. The way I was able to do that is by drafting a lot. I like drafting a lot, so it doesn't feel like a chore to me at all. Honestly, a lot of times when I'm playing Arena, if I'm not doing it to make content, I'm just going to play a draft, because that is one of the most fun aspects of Magic to me. And I think that the Arena economy is just fundamentally screwed up in how it was created, because if anything, it's too generous to somebody like me, where it's, I shouldn't be able to have gotten as much as I've gotten on Arena with putting no money into it. But the problem is, if you aren't interested in drafting, when you decide, okay, I want to play constructed, I would like to spend a little bit of money on Arena, the return you get once you start spending money is just awful if you're not using it to fund drafts. That is the core problem of the entire Arena economy discussion, is when you start spending money, the rate of return you get is terrible.
So one of the things that we're going to be introducing here shortly, and I believe I don't have the exact timeline, but it's, around SNC, maybe sooner, is we're going to sell a pack that is Mythic guaranteed.
Okay.
So when you buy this pack, it'll cost 1,300 gold.
Okay.
There will be a gem bundle that you can get like 10 of them for gems instead. But the baseline is 1,300 gold. When you open that, the rare or mythic slot will be either a wild card, a rare or mythic wild card, or it will be a mythic from that set.
So this is one of the solutions or changes to the Arena economy that was brought up in this stream. And this is really nibbling around the edges. So for people who haven't amassed big collections on Arena, what happens is once you start opening a lot of packs from the set, you'll eventually get to the point where you have all the rares. And if you open a pack at that point, instead of getting, if you would have gotten a rare, instead you get 20 gems back, which is a really poor exchange for what the pack cost. I think the packs cost 100 gems. I don't ever buy packs for gems. But I believe that once you have all the rares, if you buy a pack and you get something, you get 20 gems in place of a rare because you already have all the rares, you've essentially just deleted like 80% of the cost of the pack, and you really have gotten very little value out of the pack. So what they're saying is, for people who are in that spot, rather than buying the normal packs, you can start buying these packs that cost 30% more. So 1,300 gold instead of 1,000 gold. And it'll be a pack for people who are just trying to get mythics out of the set. And I don't know that that really applies to like that big of a part of the population. But if you're somebody who has been buying packs to get mythics once you already have all the rares, this probably helps you. One thing you do have to remember is you're going to be building up your rare wild card wheel slightly slower. So it's not just strictly upside. You are giving up. I think for the price of 4 of these mythic packs, you could have bought 5 regular packs. So you would be, 25% further along the way to getting your next wild card. So if you're someone who really, if you're looking to get wild cards, this still probably isn't a very good deal for you. But if you're looking to get mythics out of a set, it is a good deal. Overall, this is a really minor change. It's going to make it slightly more efficient for people in a very specific circumstance to get packs. Also, for people who weren't clear, he used the acronym SNC in explaining when this was going to happen. That stood for Streets of New Caperna, which is the next set that's going to be released on Arena. So I'm not sure exactly when that's coming, but it's in a month or two.
So we're going to offer a wild card bundle that you can just buy in the store.
Okay, so direct purchase of
direct purchase. It'll be 12 rare wild cards and 4 mythic rare wild cards. The theory is that, again, if you're pretty good along the way to having a deck that you like that's, you think is going to be pretty good, you just want to just finish it off right there, you can buy this from the store. It's $49.99.
All right, so this is the other big economy change, and it's the idea that you can buy wild cards directly for money. And the rate that they are selling it at is 12 rares plus 4 mythics for $50, which really just highlights the fact that once you decide to spend money on Arena, you're getting a pretty horrible value. If you're starting from scratch and you just want to install Arena, have a tier 1 deck that you just want to play right out of the gates, and that is your goal. So you're considering, I don't want to just open a bunch of packs and get random cards. I know the deck I want. I just want to construct that deck. How much is it going to cost? This is something that potentially is going to save you money, but it's pretty clearly just telling you that the cost of a regular standard deck that might have a multicolor deck, so you have a bunch of rares in the mana base, you're probably going to spend $150 to $200 just to get a deck to play, and that's just, it's too expensive compared to what Runeterra is offering or the new Yu-Gi-Oh game is offering. It might be competitive with Hearthstone, but it really, this is just spelling out in black and white that you do not get a good value when you decide to spend cash on Arena. And now you might say, okay, well, why not they just, the price could just be lower. It could be, 20 or $25, something like that, which even at that point, I would say it was too expensive. But at that point, they're just undercutting people buying boosters. So the price of this is set so that it is not as good as buying boosters in general. If you want a broad collection, it only makes sense to do this if you want a very specific deck. And even then, it's a pretty bad deal.
If you're a limited player, you have a very real event path that gets you a bunch of cards. You open the cards, you have prizes that give you gems and boosters. Those boosters that you get, you can open in again, accelerate your wild cards, and all of those things, build a collection. Constructed events don't do the same thing, right? They're very...
They give gold and ICRs.
Gold and ICRs, you get a handful of ICRs, and that doesn't do anything to, like the ICRs you get aren't tied to a specific set, they're just the format, so standard. As a whole, so you don't know which boosters are going to come from. They don't do anything to progress wildcard tracks, so you're not getting any benefit there. And it's just a light touch on your collection. So one of the things we're doing here soon, probably April, May timeframe, is we're going to update some of the constructed events to be more similar to what we do with draft. You'll get gems, you'll get boosters as part of doing well. We'll have slightly different structures for best of 1 and best of 3. But the hope there is that by changing what the rewards look like and how you're playing, you're going to have more meaningful progress for collection for opting into a constructed event than you might currently have.
So this is another change we're talking about, which is the details aren't really spelled out they're going to make the constructed events somewhat more appealing to play in, which as of right now, they're pretty unappealing to play in. I haven't played in one of them in a very long time. I think it's really just going to come down to what the details are here. I do have to say that as somebody who would consider playing in them, the idea that you'd be winning boosters in them is not very appealing to me at all. Because in order, like, if you're considering entering them, the boosters may or may not be valuable to you. If you're awarding boosters in a set that I've already completed, you're basically giving me something that is not particularly valuable. I think it would appeal to a broader selection of the player base, or a broader swath of the player base, if the rewards were just entirely in gold or gems, which obviously gold or gems are more valuable because you can spend them on, the boosters that you actually want, as opposed to only being awarded the boosters from whatever set the event is set up to award. So I think if they want this to be a popular path, they should certainly be not placing very many of the rewards in terms of boosters.
What's the best way to distribute cards in this manner? Obviously, historic anthologies have a model, which was, you can buy one of all of the cards at once, and you get one of, and you buy all four. You can use craft wild cards. There is a little bit of an appeal to, like, I can get one of everything. But one of the things, again, what we talked about was there's something satisfying about opening a booster, making progress towards wild cards, so you can open, tying into that normal Magic feel. So that's where we leaned into alchemy boosters. Now, because this is new, we've tried a couple of different things over time. We're going to continue to experiment on how we, allow people to acquire those cards.
I really, really dislike this answer. So the context, which maybe got cut off a little bit at the beginning there, is they're talking about why is alchemy distributed in the way that it is, there are these alchemy boosters you can buy in the store. And I think there's a lot of things that I would take issue with what Chris said here. First of all, opening boosters on Arena really isn't particularly fun. There isn't actually a big universe of different things you can get in the pack. You can't get a particularly valuable card that you could then, trade for a bunch of other cards you want. There's no trading. There's no value attached to individual cards on Arena. There's also no fancy cosmetic versions of cards that appear in packs. So you can't get a foil or an alternate art version of something. That isn't how cosmetics work on Arena. Also, because of the way packs are duplicated, just as you open packs, you know what's going to happen. It's just over time, you're going to, narrow down the pool of cards you're potentially opening, and then eventually you're just going to get everything. It follows a very, very predictable script. There's no excitement in it at all. And I've got to say that the idea that people would be using gems or gold to buy these packs, and that would be a fun or good way for people to acquire the cards, just isn't true. If you're spending currency to buy the packs and you're opening them, you are not interacting with the Arena economy in the best way. You're being penalized for interacting with it in that way. I have basically all of the alchemy cards I want. I don't literally have 4 of everything. I could definitely craft 4 of anything I wanted if I wanted to do that. I just craft the cards as I choose to use them. I have never bought an alchemy pack. The way that I've gotten all of my alchemy cards is I draft whatever the current draft set is. I don't use any of my wild cards that I get from the packs that I win from drafting to craft cards in that set. I just save all of my wild cards to craft cards that do not appear in draftable products. That is the easiest way and the most efficient way to build an alchemy collection. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't like drafting, or you're not very good at drafting, it's not going to work that well for you, or it might not work at all. But that is what the economy is pushing you to do. It is not pushing you to open booster packs because it's fun. It's pushing you to play limited, win packs in limited, open those packs to spin your wild card wheel up, use those wild cards to craft the alchemy cards. That is the path that the economy is incentivizing, whether they admit that or not. Another thing I want to take issue with about that answer is that he says that they're going to continue to experiment on how they distribute these cards. And this is something that it came up a bunch of times in the stream where Chris talks about how they're going to study the data and they're going to, try to tailor the way the economy works to, based on the data they receive, and they're going to iterate on it. And he keeps using all of this language that makes it sound to me like I'm in a sociology experiment when I'm playing Arena. I'm not interested in participating in a game that's like a sociology experiment, or it's some sort of economics professor's way to build a model economy. I'm interested in just, playing on Arena because Magic's a fun game. I'm interested in playing Magic for fun, for entertainment. I make content off of it, but I'm primarily doing it because it's fun. The idea that I'm in an experiment is not appealing to me at all. It's honestly a net negative. I think while it obviously makes some sense for them to be, doing data-driven decisions, I think that at times, certainly when they talk about how they develop the game, they fixate on this too much. And I think that they also just try to be too data-driven in how they do things. I think that just subjectively having good designers who can look at things and say, okay, this is going to be fun, this is going to be appealing, is way better than being in what feels like a sociology experiment where they're going to slightly tweak the knobs and see if they can, train us like we're rats in a maze or something to, get to the reward in the way that they would prefer us to get to it. It really rubs me the wrong way when this is the approach that they are taking. And it really feels like it's very in your face whenever they talk about how they design things.
Is there anything in the pipe to bring an Eternal format that isn't tied to Alchemy?
There is.
Okay.
And it's coming relatively soon.
Yeah.
All right, so this is going to be good news to a lot of people who feel like the addition of Alchemy has ruined Historic for them. They're saying that there's going to be this new format that is not going to use any of the digital-only cards. The details on it are pretty vague, but I think that this is something that a lot of people will take from the stream as a big positive. I personally am actually a pretty big proponent of Alchemy in terms of not the economy, but just the idea of rebalancing the cards online. And it's never bothered me that Alchemy became a part of Historic. I know it bothers a lot of people, so this is certainly good news for them. We'll have to see what the details are. One thing that definitely was not promised here is they're not launching Pioneer on Arena anytime soon. This is going to be something that isn't Historic and it isn't Pioneer. It's going to be something different. So you may or may not be happy with that. You're going to have to wait and see what the details of it are.
The more pressing need at the time we launched Alchemy was, all right, we have standard, we have this non-rotating format, but what we don't have is something for digital players who want more regular balances, more regular iterations on what's popular at the speed that makes sense for a game that has lots of play.
I wanted to highlight that statement because I've seen this sentiment online that nobody asked for Alchemy, so why did they do it? And I have to say that I'm one of the players Chris was talking about. I wanted more rapid balance changes to the sets. I wanted things to continue to feel fresh longer. So I definitely feel like I am in the category of people that he said they were trying to appeal to with Alchemy. And it's worked for me. Like I know a lot of people have disliked Alchemy for a variety of reasons, including the economy, and I can understand the economic concerns. But for me, Alchemy has been a positive. So I'm glad they did it, and I definitely do not agree with the people that said that there was no one asking for it. I guess I wasn't explicitly asking for it because it didn't even occur to me that it was something they would do, but it is definitely something that I wanted, and I'm happy that it exists.
The question is, it feels really bad when we get our 8th plus copy of the same rare from two different sets with the exact same art even. This was an issue, I think, with Jumpstart particularly.
And it happens whenever we reprint.
Yeah. It says, why not auto-dust those for us?
The short answer is technology.
Okay.
But this is a nice thing. So I believe we have announced, and if we haven't, I'm going to preview it now.
Okay.
The ability to like set your favorite land. And
We haven't announced that, so continue.
Great. So that's coming. And some of the tech that was required to do that, to kind of clean up some, maybe some assumptions that were made a while ago, and like, oh, we're going to have this issue, or we're going to we don't want you to have to sort through, scroll through every land. Just set a favorite, and that'll be your default. That tech also will help us solve this other problem.
Okay.
Now we don't have a solution right now.
Okay.
But that helps us go, all right, how do we solve for when there is a reprint? And people don't need 12 copies of Duress,
right,
to be like one of the more common examples.
Yeah.
So the idea that you're going to get the ability to favorite a basic land is something that people have asked for a long time. And it's something I made a video talking about the Arena UI a week or two ago. And in that video, I said, the idea that you could favorite just one of each basic land is kind of it's like below a bare bones level of functionality, I would say. And so it doesn't sound like we're getting something better than just being able to favorite one of each basic land, but I hope we are, because it really, it's something that a little bit more sophistication I think would be called for. And I think that it would certainly be nice if you could do more than just favorite one basic land. If you could, choose to have a pool of different basic lands, and you're going to have mismatched lands from that pool in your deck if you like playing with mismatched lands, which I actually do. Or if you could just say, I want to favorite 5 different islands, and whenever I do a booster draft, just give me one of those islands at random. Like, I think there's a lot more that they could do here in terms of how favoriting basic lands works than the simplest solution. To the broader question, though, about why aren't they auto dusting like your 12th copy of Duress or like your 8th Temple of Enlightenment, Chris gives this answer that basically they didn't have the technology to do that, and I believe him. I think that's true. I just think that's a really crappy answer to be giving to your customers at this point. Like, Arena's been around for years. I would have liked there to be more of a sense of urgency to actually solve that problem, because it's just one of the kind of in-your-face ways that Arena is not consumer friendly.
But what about converting common and uncommon wild cards for a rare mythic? So not dusting, but like trading up. I know a lot of people end up with a lot of common, a lot of uncommon wild cards. That is the question, yeah.
So the lot of common and uncommon wild cards is part of how we design the economy.
Okay.
Again, when we talk about regrets and feel bads, one of the things we wanted to prevent is anybody ever being unable to create a deck that they wanted because they didn't have uncommons.
I like that answer a lot. I think that's a really good design philosophy, and I think that is, perfectly reasonable. I think that in terms of making the economy more consumer friendly, the idea of trading up wild cards it doesn't make sense to be trying to address it in that space. And I think just their general philosophy of commons and uncommons shouldn't be things that you're struggling to get for a deck. That's a great philosophy. So I was really happy with that answer.
What about reimbursements for nerfed cards, so cards that are rebalanced to be less powerful in Historic? Can we get our wild cards back? Before you launch into that, I'm gonna be corporate chill for a sec. It is worth pointing out that there were a bunch of nerfed cards, rebalanced cards, and it was Alchemy, so a little different, but that did show up in the event, the championship this past weekend. So they do still get played, but it's still a reasonable question. This card that I had that I exchanged a wild card for maybe no longer does what I to do. So is there any discussion in that area?
That one's slightly more complicated. In the goal, again, of having a fast digital format was for us to be able to make changes quickly.
Yeah.
Both positive and negative. We've had, some of the rebalances were very heavily skewed towards just cards got better. A couple of them got worse.
The whole dungeon
Correct.
deck,
Like,
yeah.
hey, let's find cards that we think have interesting potential, but may have missed the mark.
Yep.
And make them better. And we saw with Venture, we saw that, and it actually did well in the set championship. Right?
Yep.
In order to maintain that, we needed to be able to free designers to make changes without what's the cost.
Right.
Right. It is a thing that we have to be aware of. So that's part of that equation on why as we launch, we don't do refunds. Now, I'm not saying that won't change over time. We're still, again, learning as we go in a lot of these things.
I think that was a pretty unfortunate answer. I mean, so first of all, he uses the phrase that we needed to free the designers from having to worry about the cost of doing a rebalancing. And it's not really exactly clear what he means in terms of cost. Like, one way to interpret that would be that the cost is that WotC is giving out wild cards so they're making less revenue down the road. Or another way to interpret it might be that the cost is that they have to develop a mechanism to issue the refunds, and they didn't want to take the time to do that yet. It's not really clear what he means when he says cost there. And also, this is a question that specifically was asking about getting refunds in historic, rather than just more broadly, if your cards get nerfed in the format you're playing. I really I think that the idea that they launched Alchemy and the rebalancing cards and they don't have a mechanism to refund you wild cards when they rebalance things is just truly awful. And if you look at not just in historic, but Townraiser Tyrant has, I think, gone through 2 nerfs at this point and a capitalization. And there's, if you used your wild cards, or you effectively bought Townraiser Tyrant when it first came out, you have a card that is just much less powerful than when it started, and they're just not offering any sort of compensation, and that's led to people having really low confidence in terms of expecting if you buy the cards that you think are strong in Alchemy right now, you're expecting that they're going to get nerfed and that you're not going to get any compensation. And it's not good for the format. It's not reasonable for consumers. I think that this is just something that they really need to address. And just yesterday, they came out with a new Alchemy swath of cards for Neon Dynasty, and there's a black uncommon draw spell that is really overpowered. I would say that one is really destined to be nerfed. And it's not going to be that big of a deal because this time it's an uncommon. But if you're considering crafting that card, you should do it with the understanding that it's probably going to get nerfed. And when it does, they're not going to give you the option to trade in your nerfed version to get your wild cards back. And I think that is one of the big reasons that Alchemy has not been a successful format. And I think it's something they really need to change.
The philosophy around all changes that we make is, when we're talking rebalance, we're trying to find the right level of power so the card is still playable, but doesn't create a situation where it's the only card you should play.
Okay.
Right? And so when you look at some of the changes, and particularly, we do balance primarily for Alchemy, and some of those changes will hit historic over time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're rebalancing a card that doesn't see any historic play, and it still doesn't see any historic play, and nobody cares about those particularly, right? But the kinds of ones we've seen are ones where the balance is more felt in historic than in Alchemy, and how do we manage those? So there's a couple things. Again, we'll look at the play rate, how they perform in decks. We have a lot of data on, what is the win rate of decks that include these cards, and did it go up or down? From the data side, we've been pretty happy with the changes we've made. Most of the time, I'm not going to say every time because it's not always going to be true, but most of the time when we've made a change like that, the win rates stay pretty even with the balance card and the change card. A lot of what sometimes it'll happen, it may go down in how often it's played a little bit, as people find alternatives that just weren't viable at the time, but now you have a conversation around, or
So that statement came about shortly after the talk about why there aren't refunds for alchemy rebalances. I edited out a little bit that I didn't think was really germane to it. The and this again is something I take a lot of issue with, because first of all, he's saying that they're relying on data to figure out, if their rebalance was successful. Did we knock the win rate of the card down a little bit, but is it still reasonable? That isn't data that's shared with the public at all. So if you're somebody who bought Townraiser Tyrant and you were happy with the card when you bought it, he's trying to say, okay, you should be confident that when we nerf the card, we're only going to nerf it to a degree that you'll still be happy with it. But we're not going to share with you any of the data that we're using to make that decision. You're just going to have to trust us. And I don't buy that just as an argument, but I have to also say that it's irrelevant. Like, you sold the card as a card that did one thing, you changed what it did. It doesn't matter that you're trying to change it in a way that fits these parameters. Like, you changed what you sold people. You should be willing to, essentially buy it back for a wild card. And also, this is just another one of those. I get that game designers are going to be looking at the win rates of strategies when trying to figure out how to balance things, but the idea that it's so in your face that the way we're trying to get you to interact with the economy is that you're going to spend your money, and then you're going to trust that we're going to come along and we're going to balance everything perfectly, but we're not going to share any of the data with you. It does not feel like a scenario that is very friendly to the consumer.
Is the normal acquisition rate of wild cards something that is open to change?
If you're talking about the rate at which we currently distribute wild cards, is it open to change? Yes. Do we plan on changing it? Right now, the answer is no.
So that brief exchange to me really just encapsulates the idea that people are asking, will you make Arena cheaper? And I mean, the answer is basically, could we make Arena cheaper? I guess we could, but we don't want to. So if what you're looking for is, will Arena become cheaper? The answer is, it's not looking likely right now.
Will there be more remastered draft sets added?
Will there be more remastered draft sets? Not currently on our radar.
Okay.
I don't know if we're supposed to take that as there aren't going to be more old sets added anytime soon, or if they are going to be added, they aren't going to be remastered. And let me just say that I really hope if you do add old sets, but don't remaster them. My experience playing Amonkhet Remastered and playing Kaladesh Remastered was that the remastered sets were worse for limited than their original iterations. I think that part of the goal in remastering them was to make them better to play in limited, and I think it just made them worse. So I would say don't spend any effort on trying to remaster sets to make them better for limited, because it's just wasted effort. I'm somebody who would play, essentially flashback drafts of the original sets, and I will play them more if it is just the formats that they were originally released, not some sort of remastered variation of them.
Sure.
Way back when.
Yeah.
And then we came up with the current version of duplicate protection, and said we were going to remove the vault.
Yeah.
And then we just didn't, because what happens in the vault is that you open up, duplicate commons and uncommons, which happens quite a bit. You just get progress in your vault, and eventually it shows up on your screen, and you can open it. You get some wild cards. For us, we think that that's just a nice little bonus. We don't.
Sure.
It's not an integral part of the economy anymore, but we leave it as a bonus for people who end up opening a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And when you talk about, again, why packs over things, like when you open packs, you do make progress towards that vault eventually over time, and it's a nice little bonus.
I thought that was a fine answer, in that just clarifying that the vault is really not supposed to be a big deal, because it certainly isn't a big deal. I do think they don't do themselves any favors, because people do see the vault and expect it to be a big deal. So the fact that it still exists, but it's in this kind of awkward state, really, I think it's just contributing to the negative impression people have of the economy a lot of the time, because they're expecting that the vault is going to be something generous, and it's not. So this seems like something that they should probably really do away with if it's not intended to be a big deal.
Are there any economy considerations for limited players with hundreds of spare wild cards and unopened packs? So someone who goes on Arena to play limited, the rewards they get, they're not interested in constructed.
That's a really good question. You know, some of it stems from we think having a collection is valuable. We know that not every player wants a collection.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that you would talk about, like, what are ways that you would prevent some of that, which is a phantom event or a different reward structure or whatever. But we do want to be cautious about who is playing in the formats and what the their ultimate goal is.
Yeah.
I'll say that right now, if your only goal is to chain limited and you're getting boosters, that's not necessarily going to be a thing that's super rewarding for you.
Right.
We don't have any specific plans to address that or adjust that at this time.
Okay.
So this is something that's always bothered me about the arena economy, even though I wouldn't say it's directly affected me. One of the best ways to play Magic is definitely just booster drafting. There are plenty of people that only interact in Magic by booster drafting, and the economy should be accommodating to them, and it's not. The economy is set up so that if you're not following their kind of one preferred track of how you're approaching playing Arena, it doesn't reward you in the way that it should. And the one track being that the best way to play Arena is amass gold from your daily quests and weekly rewards, whatever's giving you gold. Use that to enter drafts. Use the drafts to get the cards to play Constructed, then play Unconstructed ladder or wherever you want to play Constructed to continue to amass more gold to then feed back into drafts. That is the one efficient way to play Arena. I think that the Arena economy should work better for people who don't want to play Limited at all, and it should work better for people who only want to play Limited. If you're someone who only wants to play Limited, there are ways that you can kind of circumvent this problem with the Arena economy. So if you're somebody who's good enough at draft that you are effectively infinite in it, whenever you're entering a draft, you're likely to wind up with more gold or gems than when you entered. That's great. I mean, you can play as much as you want, and it's basically free. The one thing I would say, if you're in that scenario, just save up all your gems. Every couple of months, they have a Arena open that's limited. Just use your gems to enter that. If you do well, you'll win some cash. If you don't, you lost your gems, but you weren't really you didn't need them anyway. So that is the way to approach it if you only want to play limited and you're winning a lot. If you're not winning a lot, if you're having to spend money to play limited on Arena and you're disappointed that the rewards you get are not helping you to subsidize you playing more limited, just make additional free-to-play accounts. Set up dummy email addresses, make additional accounts, those email addresses, and just cycle through the accounts as you play throughout the week. That way you will get more gold from all of the daily quests, which will allow you to draft more for free. And you can also, there's like a $5 introductory package that you get a good deal on gems. Just, whenever you open a new account, if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, you can get that good deal over and over. So just honestly draft on a bunch of different accounts. Only do that if you don't care about building up a collection, because there's no way to consolidate those accounts into one account that has a good collection. But if all you want to do is draft, there's really no reason to just stick to one account. So with that, that's the end of the topics that I wanted to touch on about the video. I hope people found this helpful. It didn't really wind up being particularly positive, but I think the reality of Arena and the Arena economy is that without more substantial challenges or more substantial changes, we really aren't going to get to that positive of a place. The kind of only reason I have to be optimistic about this at all is that it at least seems like they're paying enough attention that they're starting to try minor tweaks. I think it's going to take bigger tweaks than they're comfortable making thus far to actually get to a good place. But, I mean, maybe this was the first step to get to a good place. Hopefully. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. And if you have any comments, please leave them below and I will read them. And if they're really good, I'll respond to them. Thanks for watching.